This is us restarting week 6 because it decided to crash on us, but that's okay. We don't need it. We just need to go here in week 6. Okay, we're going to make a brand new project again, starting from scratch. This is going to be week 6 project. Over here, this thing over here. And we're going to drag this guy on top and import that. So first thing I'm going to show how to make is a plane and a ball that moves with physics, and then I'll jump into the breakable stuff on top of that. I need some test objects here. All right, so we make a plane here, that, solution, go here, your editor. Maybe okay. There's a ball that moves. And then we're going to take this guy, crank him up, put some cubes in the level. All right, so I think that's probably good. Oh, and the camera, right? I'm going to attach the camera to this thing. VR stick. This is getting the position of the sphere, and then we're going to reset the camera position to be that. So here, we'll grab the sphere, put it here, store it here, set it here, put that there, every frame, world. And then what I can do is go to the stick, and I think that's good. So now this should follow the ball around as I was there before, right? So now I have a camera that's following the ball. Cool. Okay, so we can resume where we were at by making a breakable vase, right? So I start off by making an empty game object, save my scene just in case, or whatever. Empty game object is going to be breakable vase. And I'm going to put an image on this thing, an icon, so I know where it is. And I'm going to go here and reset the position of these things. This is just going to be an object that is going to represent the game thing that has a trigger, has the vase, and eventually has our pickup that we spawn as well. All right. So as I was doing before, I was so rudely interrupted. We take this broken vase and we're going to put it inside the level, and I'm going to parent this thing to the breakable vase, which is what happened when it just crashed when I tried to do that. Reset the position, and now when I move the breakable vase, it moves around the bottom part. On top of that, we're going to put an unbroken vase with it, okay? We're going to take this unbroken vase, which is just called vase. We're also going to parent that to this thing. We're also going to zero out its position. And you can see that because they're on top of one another, there's a little bit of z-fighting there. So by default, I'm going to disable this object, the broken one, so that it's not shown in-game. Okay? So now I have a vase that I'd like to set it up so that it has no collision right now, which is fine. We don't actually need collision on this thing. I want to set it up a trigger that when I hit that vase, that the trigger causes the vase to switch between the unbroken form to the broken form. Okay? So I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to rename this guy to be a trigger. I'm going to parent this guy to the breakable vase object as well. Take this trigger and I'll reset his position. So there's my trigger. I'm going to raise him up a little bit, maybe scale him up as well. I'm going to hide his renderer and make him a trigger. That seems like a reasonable trigger for a vase. You don't need per poly collision for this thing. You basically just need if I'm getting close to this thing. And what I want to do is this trigger, whenever the player touches it, all I want to do is deactivate this thing, hide this thing, and enable this thing. Okay? So I'm basically going to cycle this thing. I'm going to turn this thing off like that and turn this thing on at the same time. Okay? It's going to basically turn it into a broken vase. And we're going to play a particle system on top of it just to hide the transition a little bit. Okay? So here's my trigger. I'm going to add a Playmaker state to this thing. Again, to save some time, if you have an object that doesn't have a Playmaker component on it already, just go to your editor window and keep this guy open. Click on the object that you want to add a Playmaker component to and just add a state here. I'm going to control click to add a state, and that adds a state machine here and a state component onto my object. Okay. And this thing is going to be waiting. I'm going to call it the unbroken state. And then I'm going to add a new state, just like a light switch where it's broken. Okay? And we need to set up a transition that goes from here to here. And that's going to be an event that I add that calls player collided. Okay? And unbroken is going to have a transition called player collided that goes to the broken state. Okay? Let me take a minute here and see if anyone's actually able to follow along. Is anyone actually following along? Okay. How are you doing, Diana? You have the trigger on the object? Okay, so your trigger, I don't have any, I have basically two states in here. One that's unbroken and one that is broken. And I have an event that transitions from this one, the unbroken state, to the broken one. This event I want to fire based on a trigger event when the player touches me. Okay? We'll play an effect as well. We'll play a particle system. And we're going to spawn like a gold coin pickup that the player can then run over and pick up again. Okay? So once you have your event that goes from one to another, we're going to add a trigger event action into the unbroken state. Okay? And trigger event is basically going to fire the player collided. And after it's fired the player collided event here, in the broken state we're going to do two things. Remember how I said that I want to activate the vase broken object and deactivate the vase object. I want to basically do those two things at the same time. And that'll basically swap the vase out. So in order for me to do that, I go to this trigger, and in my broken state, there's an action called activate game object. You're going to add two of these guys, one on top of each other. And the first activate game object I'm going to use to hide the big vase, the unbroken one. So I'm going to say specify game object here. I'm going to drag the unbroken vase on top of it. Okay? And I'm going to say deactivate it, which is the same as unchecking this checkbox. The second activate game object action, I'm going to say drag the broken vase here, and I'm going to activate it. So I'm basically swapping the activation state of both the vase and the unbroken one. Make sure that this checkbox is off too. that you're deactivating the regular vase. And if you play and you roll over that vase, it changes, right? So you can watch up here too in the scene view. As the ball like touches that thing, it swaps out. Cool. Nothing really that fancy, right? It's just basically activating a game object and deactivating. It's toggling the behavior. And a lot of breakables in games are all about just playing. What we did for Hunted, when we had breakable barrels, it was literally the same idea. There was a barrel, and the barrel was instantly hidden when you attacked it, and then there was a particle system that was shaped like a barrel, that looked like a barrel to start. It just had barrel parts in it that started kind of in the shape of a barrel and exploded outwards, and it made it look amazing because it just like worked, and you could never tell that it swapped to be like a particle system, and that's why it still works and is still used all over the place. Like that's just how you do breakables. You just play particle systems to hide it. I am going to now make this a prefab. So here, I'm going to make a folder called prefabs under my projects view. And I'm just going to drag my vase into there. And I'm just going to dupe it a bunch of times. Basically just have a bunch of these. Like so. I just reposition my camera a little bit here. Like that. I just made it a prefab, so as I run over these things, they all kind of break, right? Okay. By the way, this is exactly how you do pickups. It's kind of like exactly the same thing. Let's spice this up a little bit. Let's just have, we have time to do BFXR, right? If you guys haven't detected this yet, BFXR is like my favorite thing ever. Oh, I'm entering the Ludum Dare this weekend. So FYI, I'll be doing a game jam this weekend. Yeah, we'll do that right after this, too. Kai, I always love getting a reaction out of you. I always love getting a reaction. That's good. Export wave, put it to my desktop, explosion 5, and then I'm going to mutate this a little bit. Let's do 3. Okay, so I have 3 explosion sounds I'm going to bring into my project. BFXR.net. It's like SFXR, but online. Why is Firefox so crappy? Where do my like minimize buttons go? What does it even think it's? I'm not on full screen. Whatever. Firefox, go away. No, he's like, no, I don't want to go away. Okay, so let's just import these things because audio makes all the difference. Take all 3 of these explosion sounds and then drag them over here. And then in the prefab itself, I can go to the trigger and I can just have it play a sound called play random sound. And I can just drag 3 audio clips in there. Okay. And then now when I run over them, oh, it's too quiet. Kai, I'm cranking up the volume, just FYI.
Are we ready?
I gotta move that camera in a little bit too. Right? Okay, sound makes all the difference. And what we can do is we can play particle effects and stuff, which I think we can do. I don't know if there's any. Oh, by the way, if you guys want to have some really great like example particle systems, look up Shuriken particle systems. Unity released a tutorial on how to use their Shuriken editor, which is basically this particle editor on the right. We're just going to do a really super fast version of an explosion, like a particle-shaped explosion. Oh, and I can also go to my vase, and I think there's actually a material for this thing. Yeah, I want to say there's actually material for this guy. There it goes. That's the vase material. I can go here and apply it to all. Apply all. That's weird. Okay. And I can go to my particle system that I just made and just set it to be a burst of, you guys should be pretty good at making particles by now. Here's my burst. And have it be a box-shaped particle system and a little bit taller. Okay. And then random direction. Cool. And set the lifetime to be really small. And then, okay. And all we have to do is, if we want to play this thing, make this thing into a prefab, particle system explosion. And drag this guy to be in your prefabs list as well. And then go to your Playmaker state, and the same place where you're playing your sound, here, you can create objects. And create object is what I'm going to do to also create a pickup, okay? So I have this particle system, right, that I just made, which is beautiful, by the way. Looks like that. I could change the color so it's a little bit, oops. You guys can make a particle system too. Change the color. Okay, so you can see that, which is my goal. And I made it into a prefab here, right? So I can take this guy and I can drag him into the level. And it's important that I've made him into a prefab because that is how you make objects like pickups spawn in your level, all right? So because he's a prefab, I don't need to actually place him in the level at all. I have him here in my folder on the right. So if I go to my trigger that is responsible for playing the sound, I can add a create object action. And create object is how you do things like spawning bullets and spawning enemies. It takes a prefab to use as a template of what you want to make. So here I have a prefab for an explosion, which I'm going to drag onto here, onto the game object, right? And it also asks for a spawn point. So I'm going to spawn this guy right on top of the vase. So I can select my, my breakable vase. I have a GO, just drag this breakable vase on top. And if I play now and I start the game, what it's going to do is when it hits these vases, it's going to spawn my particle system on top of it. And if I edit my particle system, be a different color, because it's a prefab, every time it spawns, the color also gets updated, right? They're all spawning the same particle system. It's just they're doing it on their own. And this thing, I don't want it to loop. Yeah. This is like blood effect. It's kind of out of control. Okay, so we have a particle system now, right? So we can use the same thing. Let's first make a pickup, okay? Let's make something that you can pick up, and then let's spawn that pickup when you break the vase, all right? So I have a vase here that I've made that when I run into it, something happens to it. So I want the same thing to happen. So let's make a coin pickup. I think that seems like a good thing. Playmaker, the default objects, it gives us this coin thing. Looks kind of like that, right? And I can slap a color sheet on that guy so it looks yellow. Okay, so if you just drag a coin into your level, you can get this guy. This coin, I'm going to rename this to be GO_coin because I like to rename things to be that way. And I want to set up a trigger that wraps around this guy. So here's my coin. Let's go here and add a cube. I'm going to rename this guy again to be trigger. I'm going to parent him to the coin. I'm going to reset his position, drag him up, scale him down, turn him on as a trigger, and disable his mesh render. So I basically just made the same thing as my vase, right? So here's my vase, right? Let me just disable all the rest of these things for now. So here's my vase, right? It has a trigger. It's this thing that I'm moving around right now. Here's my coin. It also has a trigger, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually make the trigger tall enough to go all the way to the ground because I kind of want this thing to float. So I'll have it be like that. And maybe it looks like that. So on the trigger itself, which I want to make sure is at 0, 0, and lift it up just a little bit, I'm going to add a Playmaker component to this thing. All right. So on the trigger, add a Playmaker component. Again, I'm just in the editor. I just control-click to add a state, which automatically creates a component for me. And I'm going to add a trigger event, action. Same exact thing as what we just did with the vase, right? Again, we're going to add an event that says player touched me. And just like the vase, we need two states. First state is waiting for player. The second state is picked up by player. Okay? And I'm going to add a transition to go from waiting for player, when the player touches me, to go here. And this send event is also going to be configured correctly, too. And picked up by player, again, all it's going to do, so I have this trigger event here, which basically just says, hey, whenever a player touches me, go to this state. And this state, I want to just destroy an object. Don't use destroy self. Destroy self only destroys, in this case, the trigger that I have selected here on the bottom. All right? So I'm going to use destroy objects so that when I destroy this thing, I can take the coin, the actual parent here, and I can drag it on top. Okay? So what this means is that now I have a coin in the level that has a trigger attached to it, if I can make my way over there, that when I pick it up, so let me just bring this Playmaker state machine on the right. Oh, I forgot something, didn't I? Untagged trigger. Oh, I don't know why I turned off the box collider. Don't do that. So yeah. So if you, now if I roll over this thing, bam, the coin goes away. Simple things you can do too, because Playmaker is nice and easy to do this. If you have your coin object, what you can do is you can actually spin this guy around, right? So here's my coin. The coin's actually the child that's named coin with capital C. I can add another Playmaker state to this thing. And if I want this thing to, let's say, spin around, right? All I have to do is add a single action called rotate, this guy here. And I want it to rotate around Y about 180 degrees per second. And with just this one action that's on the object, like that, now the coin is spinning around. Okay. Just the one action is all you need. I don't want to take it. I'm scared. Okay, cool. Well, that worked. So here's the kind of cool part, right? We made one coin. Let's make a lot of them, kind of like counterfeiting money, I guess. You make one, and you can make a dozen once you have the blueprint for it. So I have this coin. Let's make it a prefab. So I'm going to drag this guy into my prefabs folder. Let's delete this coin from my level. I don't really need this coin anymore. And instead, let's have the vase that we created earlier spawn the coin when it breaks. Okay? So I go to my trigger. Oh, here's something that you guys should be aware of what it actually means, okay? I should take just a minute here to explain this. Where is confirm that? So sometimes when you go to edit a Playmaker state machine, like let's say I take a coin and I put him in my level, and I go to edit that coin, depending on, if you have a newer version of Playmaker, you'll get this dialog box that says, hey, can you confirm for me which state machine you want to edit? Did you mean to edit the prefab, or did you mean to edit the thing that you just placed, right? And ultimately, it doesn't really matter which of these you use, except if you edit the prefab, it will automatically apply the changes that you do to every instance of that prefab in your level, all right? If you edit the instance, you are responsible for applying those changes to everything in the level, all right? Let me show you what that means. I'll delete my coin, I'll go to my trigger here, and I'll edit it. And I already clicked to edit the prefab instance here, so I'm only editing this vase. I have like 10 other vases placed in here. But for now, this state machine is only editing that vase, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and spawn that coin. Well, we're already spawning a particle system, so I'm just going to add another create object call here. So I have play a sound, disable the unbroken vase, enable the broken vase, and here I'm going to make that coin. So here, the game object I'm going to make is this coin right here. And the spawn point that I'm going to use is the vase that I just dragged from here to here. Okay? Now remember that I said that I'm responsible for applying this. Okay? So this is the vase that I just edited, right? That one right there. I'm going to move him up this way. If I go ahead and enable all these other guys, so here's the one that I just edited. I'm going to move him up here. When I run into him, he will spawn a coin, right? Which I picked up automatically because I was rolling past it. Yeah, so here, so you can see the coin right there, and I picked it up. But because I didn't apply that change to the other prefabs, none of these other vases are going to spawn coins. So I have to click on this vase, and I have to click on Apply at the top right, which will automatically take the changes I made to this one and apply them to every single other one in my level. All right? And that particle system is kind of annoying, so let me just tweak it a little bit here. It's actually kind of getting in the way. 20. That's probably good. Okay, so I'll apply that as well. So now when I play, every one of these vases spawns a coin, and I immediately pick it up, right? If you don't want it to get immediately picked up, what we can do instead is we can make the coin trigger a little bit bigger, actually. Right now, that's the size of the trigger, which means that I hit the vase before I'll hit the spawned coin. And instead, I can just take this trigger and scale this guy up a little bit so that he's actually a little bit bigger than the vase. So now it's more of a chance that when I run over the vases, still picking them up, that I will not run into the coin first. Oh, that's scaling the coin. I don't want to do that.
You could probably put a wait command.
That's a good idea too. I guess I could do that. Let's try that instead. That's a good opportunity for me to show the wait command as far as triggers go. So instead of having this thing be pick-upable right away, I'm going to edit the instance again because I'm editing the coin. And instead of going right here to waiting for player, let's add a new state. And I'm going to change this one to be the start state by right-clicking on it and choosing Set Start State. And this one, I'm just going to say it's delay. And all I need to do is add a single wait here that maybe is like a second, right? And when it's finished, go here. And change this to be the finished event. And because I'm editing the instance, I need to apply the changes that I just made to everything. I'm going to apply it for the base one here. So now what will happen is that whenever I spawn the coin, it'll take about a second before it actually is pick-upable.
I meant wait on the collider to pop in. On
Yeah,
the create object.
that's actually what it's doing. So you mean don't make the coin right away?
No, make the coin right away. Just have the collider appear, you know, like a second after.
That's what it's actually doing. This delay means that I don't respond to trigger events for a second, right? So you don't actually need to enable or disable it. So here, I just basically put a delay in there, and make sure you set that as a start state too. So you can right-click on it and say set as start state.
So what you meant was like with the coin inside the vase?
Yeah.
And chip.
And make sure you can put a wait action in there. Yeah. Okay, so that's a coin pickup. And we can add a coin sound effect too as well. So every time you pick up the coin, let's play a sound. Because there is a sound in here, I think. I have to fight with that again. bfxr.net. And there's literally a button to make a pickup. Okay, that's probably good. Desktop, save. Unity is over here. Go to my desktop. There's my pickup coin sound. I'm going to drag this guy here into my scene. You can go in there. There's my coin. And so I go to my coin in the level. And he has a sound play, which I'll drag here. And then I'll make sure that I click on my coin and apply the changes to the prefabs everywhere. So now when I play, oops. Totally like Mario, right? It's like Mario Brothers style thing. Pretty simple. Okay, we have, I think that was it for the breakables. Cool. We have a little bit of time to go over health, okay? Let me see what parts of health we can do today. We can make these coins give us health. How about that? How about we make the vases, when we break them, take away health from us, and the coins, when we run over them, give us health. And health, in this case, could be score, by the way. Like, it doesn't have to be health. It can be score or mana or time or whatever it is you want to track in something else, right?
Yeah, I was going to set like just like the set health and then have it subtract like one every time like something was hit wrong or whatever,
Yeah.
and then do a compare.
Yep.
Okay.
So Brianna, we did a little bit of this actually for you before you lost your work, which was the time remaining, right? Okay. So the concept behind health in games in general is that you have something that is aware of what your health is at all times, and then objects in your level like pickups and enemies, when they either do damage to you or they heal you, talk to the thing that is managing your health and tell it, hey dude, I just hit you for like 35 damage, do something about it, right? And the key is that the monster is not telling the guy that's managing health, hey, you need to lose 35 health. No, it's like, hey dude, I'm trying to do 35 damage to you. And the distinction there is important because sometimes in some games you have armor to keep track of. Sometimes you don't want your health to drop below 0, right? So if like a monster hits you for 35 damage and you had 10 health left, you should drop to 0, not negative 25, right? And if the monster was instead just immediately setting your health to be negative minus 35, he wouldn't know to keep track of it as below 0 or not. And sometimes you have armor that mitigates it. Sometimes you have things that prevent damage entirely, like maybe you're in God mode. Whatever it is, the key is that you are having things in your level that are asking you, hey, I'd like to try to damage you for this amount. Or, hey, I want to try to heal you for 100 health. But maybe you're at 99 out of 100 already, so you only get healed for 1, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make something that is keeping track of your health. And these vases and the coins are going to make requests to try and lower and raise that health. But they don't necessarily know if it actually worked or not, okay? So they're just going to try it, which means that we're going to make an object that manages health for us, all right? Makes sense? everyone. You can imagine this thing as basically the like a health container, like you know in Zelda how like you have those heart containers, right? Like you have you get collect, you know about this, right? How those heart containers, or any game that has RPG. This thing is going to basically be representing those heart containers. All right. So let's start off by making an empty game object. Again, I like empty game objects because they just work. Save your scenes, by the way, if you haven't saved. Brianna, save. Okay. Okay. I'm going to make an empty game object, and I'm going to call it the health manager, GO_health manager. Okay. And how about to start, we just have this thing show on screen how much health you have. That's what this thing's going to do, all right? That is going to be the responsibility of this health manager. So I'm going to add a Playmaker FSM to it. Again, I'm not going to bother adding a component through this menu. I just feel like that's just too many clicks. I just go to my editor and just add a state, and it auto adds a component for me. So the health manager, I want, this thing is actually going to have a an initial state. I'm going to call it setup. This state, I kind of only wanted to go into it once. And this is kind of like a general state I like to make. That is, I'm just going to put whatever I want to have happen only one time inside the state. Okay? And we're going to make a couple of variables to represent how much health you have. One is going to be a float to represent health. This is literally how much health you have. And then we're going to make a string which represents your health as a string. If you remember how we set up time to be shown on screen, we needed to have both time and something that lets you show the time as a string. So we need both of those variables. One is a float and one is a string. All right. So I'm going to make a second state here. I'm going to call this one update health. Okay. And setup, by default, I'm going to leave it empty for now. All I'm going to have it do is I'm going to add a finished transition from setup to go to update health. Okay. Now, update health, I want to draw some text on screen. All right. And for this, I'm going to make sure I have a font ready. This is probably a good time for me to review how to do skins, right? I'll do that in a bit. But while I'm doing this, you guys can find a font too, something that represents health. I don't know, games, Zelda. Let's just search for Zelda. Oh, cool. I want to use this font. Oh, this one has like characters on it. What the hell is that? I'm going to use the Zelda font because it's kind of game-like. Yeah, that's kind of cool. You could use that instead of the coin mesh, right? You could use that. So there's my font. I'll use that in just a bit, okay? So in my update health state, I'm going to draw what the health is. Let's just start off by adding a GUI label. And the GUI label is asking for some text. Just as a test, I'm going to say my health is something. And when I play, it currently will draw in the upper left corner of the game, right? So up there. Cool. I want to set up the font now. So if you remember, in order for you to override the font that's used, you have to make what's called a Gooey Skin. So you go to your project and you go and you right click and you say create, and all the way at the bottom right above custom font is Gooey Skin. And this one's going to be my Zelda skin. Okay. And I'm going to take my font that I downloaded, which is Zelda DXT. I'm going to drag it here into my project so it gets imported, and there's my font. And now that I have my font and my skin here, I'm going to drag my font onto replace Arial up here. So now my skin has Arial, or the Zelda DXT as the default font. and I can go back to my health manager, and all you need to do is in the setup part of your state machine, look for Gooey Skin. There's an action called Set Gooey Skin, and you're going to grab your skin and put it there. And that will override the default skin so that the font that's used is the one that you chose here. Just notice at the top left now it's like old school Zelda style font, right? Make this bigger. Right? And what's cool is I can change the color here too, because I don't think white really works well. Go to my label.
Is there like a border around it?
Yeah, you can put a background texture on it too, Kai, if you want. I'm just going to change the color to be black, maybe green. Okay. Yeah, it might help if you put a background around it so it has a border. Or you could just draw a texture. So now it's green in the top left, right? Cool. Simple stuff, but it'll go a long way. All right, so in update health, in the state here for update health, I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to convert my health into a string, right? So I'm going to say convert float to string. Float is going to be health. There's literally only one option for each of these that you can do. I'm going to do this every frame. And the format is health, or I could just say HP equals something. This something here is important that you follow a very specific set of characters to format your float into a string. So I'm going to put a curly brace, a left curly brace, and a right curly brace. And inside of that, I'm going to put the number 0. This number 0 represents the index of the variable that you want to replace it with. So just do HP equals curly brace. You want to do left curly brace, 0, and then right curly brace. Curly braces are like right above the bracket next to P. And then in your GUI label, you're going to replace this text here with health as string. So before I had some text that I wrote up there. Now I have this. And the only other thing I have left to do is go to my variables here. I'm going to initialize this thing to be 100. So notice now on the top left corner of my screen it says 100. I can change the value of this variable to be like 50. And notice that as I type this thing, it changes the thing in the upper left, right? So I have like 1 million health, billion, trillion, billion. Okay? Just start this thing off at 100, okay? So everyone should see the number that you type in here is the number that's shown in the top left, all right? So we're going to do something that we haven't done before, but is super important in Playmaker to be able to do. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this health thing, all right? The first one I'm going to show you is like the correct way, and then I'm going to show you how to use global variables to use it in an easier way. So update health here is basically just sitting here forever, all right? What I'd like to do is when I break the vase that I lose 10 health, okay? So let's go here, and let's go to my vase, in my trigger, on any of the vases. I'm going to edit the Playmaker state machine, and again I'm going to edit the instance here. And along with all these other things that I'm doing when a vase gets broken, I'm going to tell the health manager and say, hey dude, you hit me, you're going to have to lose some health, all right? You're going to have to take some damage from this thing, okay? So we're going to add a way to communicate between one object to another. Up until this point, all of our state machines have all been self-contained. we've only ever had to worry about things that are happening inside this state machine. But in the case of our health manager here, I lost my window. Where are you, window? I want to... Now I have to reset the layout. There it goes. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, so I have my editor. I have my health manager. And what I actually want to do is I want this health manager to be responsible for adding and subtracting health. So let's start off by adding some behavior in the health manager that lets people subtract health from us. All right, we're going to add a third state here. This state I'm going to call take damage. Okay. And I'm going to add an event that lets me go from here to here. And the event is going to be called took damage from something. Okay, it's kind of long. And we add this event, but this time, after you've added the event, I want you to click the checkbox to the left of the event. Okay? This checkbox to the left of the event means that people, other game objects, can fire that event for us. Like, we don't have to be responsible for firing that event. You're going to get a dialog box that says that, hey, it made some global variable object. That's fine. This event now is open to everyone. It's basically like an open calling saying, hey, any object in this entire level can use that event as if it's their own. All right? So I'm going to go to my update health state. I'm going to add a transition now. Just like it's just a regular transition like anything else. I'll get into global transitions later. And took damage for something is going to go here. Okay? And take damage, all it's going to do for now is I'm going to do a float subtract. I'm going to subtract from health. I'm going to subtract 10 from it. And I'm going to color the state red to indicate that I took damage. And then I'm going to return back to update health. I'm going to take some damage, and I'm going to go right back. Just fire finish transition and go here. Okay? So now we've set up our health manager so that if someone tells us that we took damage, that we can respond to that by subtracting health. Okay? So now I'm going to go to my vase. So I go to my vase, I go to my trigger, and now I'll go to my broken state. And as part of this, I want to tell the health manager finally that, hey dude, you took damage from something. Do whatever it is that you normally do when you take damage from something. Okay? So as part of all this stuff, I'm going to add a new action called send event. Not remote event, just send event. So send event is basically going to use that event that we made in the health manager that we clicked the checkbox for, which made it global. And it's going to fire that event. Okay? So I'm going to click on send event. I added it to my list here. The target here is going to be a game object FSM. This is so remember, this is the only event target that you will ever use in this class. All right, you will only ever use game object FSM. So keep that in mind. All right. The game object itself is not the owner. We're going to specify a game object here. Okay. So I'm going to drag the health manager on top of this. And click this little up and down arrow to the side of the FSM name. and pick FSM. You can also type it in here. And in a drop-down box, you should see took damage from something. You'll only see it if you click the checkbox on it. But if you did that, now everything is good and everything should just work. Okay? So I go back and I apply this change to all of my breakables. And I play my game. And if I run over a vase now, if you look at the top left corner, I have 90 health. I didn't update all of my things. That's why you have to remember to apply it yourself. So I have 90 health. And I still didn't update all these things. Oh, the trigger also needs to get applied. Ah, right. This is going to be a problem. This thing works, so I have 90 health now. I pick up a coin. Let me show you something that happens now. This is actually really, really important because this is not a common case. I have a vase here, and it's great. The vase works. I hit that guy, and I have 90 health now, right? It says 90. Cool. Well, I want to have like 10 of these vases in my level. All right, so all I have to do is just duplicate this guy, right? What if I just dragged that vase, the breakable one, into the scene here? Check this out. So here's my vase that I edited earlier. And look at my broken state, and look at this event. So look at the game object here. It says GO_health manager. This is actually good. That's what I'm targeting. Look what happens when I drag a breakable into my level, and then I edit the one I just placed. And look here. What happened? It says none now. Look at the difference. Here, it says game object. This is the one I just edited, this vase right here. Health manager. I dragged one of these vases, these breakables, into my level like this. I edited the trigger. And look here, it's empty. This will happen to you, by the way, and you'll be confused because you'll be like, well, I tried to add a bunch of these things and none of them worked. So here's what you have to keep in mind, all right? I'm editing a vase that's in my level, okay? This vase is pointing to something else. The trigger, I drag the health manager on top like this, right? I took the health manager, I dragged it on top. But this thing here, this health manager, only exists in my level, which means on the right here, on my folder list, this breakable object, which I've been using to drag and drop into my level, this thing over here has no idea what's in my level, okay? So what happens is that you say, cool, well, I want to take this thing here, which is none, and I'll just drag my health manager on top of it. The rule of thumb is that if you ever have a prefab, if you're ever editing any prefab like these vases, anything that's a prefab here, you cannot drag and drop or pick anything outside of that prefab, okay? Otherwise you'll get this bug. So here I have a trigger, and I'm dragging and dropping something outside of the prefab onto it. Don't do that, okay? You'll get this broken problem. You'll get this issue where, like the coin is the same way, by the way. Like I put a coin in the level, I go to edit the coin. Let's say I have something in here that's like maybe the trigger, okay? And I want to destroy an object. If you drag and drop something on top of here, like the health manager, that health manager doesn't exist as part of the prefab. It's outside of it. So you can't do that. So what do? What can you do?
You duplicate the ones you already have.
That's one way. What happens if you have another level and you want to use those prefabs in that level? What happens if you've already placed a bunch of prefabs in a level? and you're like, crap, do I have to drag and drop it into every single one of those things? There's actually a better way to do this. So I have this breakable vase, which I mentioned that it has a trigger in it. And as I mentioned, I dragged and dropped the health manager on top here, and that's no bueno. You can't do that. So the right way to do it is you go here to the health manager, and we're going to actually have the health manager create something that the breakable can reference, even if it's just a prefab. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. And this is going to kill two birds with one stone. We are going to make, instead of having the health manager be like something that you drag and drop on top of the trigger here, like this, I'm going to make a variable here that I can reference. If you use this drop-down box instead of this picker, this drop-down box will always preserve its value no matter what, if you use a prefab or whatever. Okay? So if you ever find yourself like in a prefab and you're dragging and dropping things outside of the prefab, stop and instead use a variable. Okay? So we need a variable here that we can pick from. So we are going to make a variable that the health manager can use. So I want you to go to the Variables tab and click on Global Variables. Okay? Global variables is exactly the same as normal variables, except global variables are usable by any game object, prefabs or ones in your level. It's basically accessible from anywhere. And we're going to make a variable that is representing the health manager. All right? So we're going to make a new variable. I'm going to call it the health manager. And it is going to be a game object. A game object is literally anything inside of your hierarchy. Okay? So you add that. And now, when I go to my vase, I go to my trigger, when I try to specify the game object inside the drop-down box for the trigger, you'll see a globals list here. This is the trigger on the coin, by the way. So in send event, you'll see a drop-down box. Oh, yeah, right there. And you can pick the health manager there. All right, make sure you apply that change to all the prefabs. And then finally, before we can test this for real, go back to your health manager. And inside of setup, we need to set that global variable that we created, right? We made a global variable, but we haven't actually assigned it to anything. So to set it, we're going to go to the health manager, and in the very first state, the setup state, I want you to add a new action called get owner. And you are going to store that owner in the globals health manager, all right? And if you did this correctly, now you can drag and drop breakables in your level all day. And if you go to any of these breakables and you look at his trigger, look at the game object now. It's still correct. It says health manager, right? And what that means is now when I play, I lost health for every single one of those things that I hit. And I have 40 health. All right. Okay. I'm going to resume the health part of this stuff next week. I'm going to go over making sure health is between 0 and like 100, that you don't like exceed 100 and you don't go below 0. Homework for next week is to implement a simple health mechanic in your level where you lose health. And I want you guys to use what you have done here with the health manager. And I don't really care that you die if you go below 0 or anything. All I want is in your game something that lowers health, okay? just to take what you've done here and apply it to your own game that you've done today. So I want you to work off the game that you made already, the stuff that you did for today, and next week you're going to refine that game more, add features if you want. The requirement is that I want you to take what you did with health and use it in some way. So show it in the top left. Maybe you have some hazard that subtracts health, and then together as a class we'll implement something that lets you die and gives you positive health next week. Okay. All I want you to do is just take what you just did, and you can watch the video too, which I'll stop recording.